Good morning. I want to talk today about America's overnight invasion of Venezuela, the astrology behind that attack, which took place at 2 a.m. Uh, Caracas time, the time for Caracas, Venezuela. I'm not going to talk about whether the action was legal or illegal, or whether it was wise or unwise. I just want to look at the astrological causes, so to speak, behind it. So let me see if I can share my screen and we'll get started. This will be a short presentation and give me a minute to get rid of some panels so I can see what I'm doing. Just about there. And here we are, the astrology of America's invasion of Venezuela. All right, first, if we look at the transits for January 3rd, 2026 at 2 a.m. Standard Time in Caracas, Venezuela, we see that Jupiter is still making a square to Chiron. Chiron is in Aries, and that makes violent wounding through overreaching actions, represented by Jupiter, still possible. And having the moon opposite the Venus, Sun, Mars conjunction up here, that acts as a trigger for the actions on this day. Now, let's dig a little deeper. If we look at the transits to Venezuela's chart, we have Saturn and Neptune opposite the Sun and conjunct Mars in this chart. There is a Mars-Sun opposition in this chart, and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, this transit conjunction, is activating it. So this regime is one of the things being swept away by Saturn-Neptune conjunction that will be exact on February 20th. Okay, that is one of the structures as dissolving. Then at the same time, the transiting lunar nodal axis is very strongly conjunct the natal lunar nodal axis and square the midheaven. And that is just adding to the pressure on Maduro and his government. And of course, we see the aftermath now. Okay, let's look at progressions in the chart for America. And the chart I usually like to use is the one for July 2nd, 1776, because that is when the Continental Congress actually passed the Declaration uh, of Independence, the Declaration for Independence. But the progression I'm going to show you is also present in the July 4th, 1776 Sibley chart that many astrologers also like to use. To me, that is the day that the Declaration for Independence was tweaked a little bit, printed and distributed. It went public that day. And so I think both charts are relevant. I just see the July 4th chart as having more to do with America's persona and the way it likes to be perceived, while the July 2nd, 1776 chart has more to do with how America actually is on the inside. And they're pretty similar except for rising signs and position of the moon. Anyway, in both charts, progressed Sun is making a strong square to natal Mars, exact to the degree. And this square will become exact this year in both charts. And for over a year, I've been warning that America will be more likely to become involved in aggressive actions, either at home or abroad, as we go through 2025 and move into 2026. Now, I might also point out that natal Mars in this July 2nd chart with Libra rising, it's in the ninth house, which has to do with foreign countries. So there is a really heightened risk right now and throughout this year that America will be involved in aggressive actions toward other countries. Okay, if we look at transits to America's July 2nd, 1776 chart at the time of this invasion, let's see what's going on. We have Jupiter in the 10th house, square Chiron, and Aries in the 7th house. 7th house has to do with others, so this can also refer to other countries, just as the 9th house traditionally does. Jupiter in the 10th house can represent some sort of overreach by the executive branch, an overreach being done in the name of security, since Jupiter is in Cancer. Chiron and Aries in the 7th house, that can be aggressive actions. But then at the same time, acting as a trigger, we also have transiting Mars, making a very strong square to natal Saturn. Both are at 14 plus degrees, of their respective signs. And so with Saturn in Libra, our impulse to control others through aggressive action, that is being stimulated by Mars. Mars is aggressive action. It's in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. That Saturn has to do with control. Our natal Saturn is in Libra. Libra is others. And basically, through Jupiter and Mars, this natal Saturn-Chiron opposition is being activated. At its best, we recognize the inherent spirituality and dignity of every individual, and we integrate that into the structure of our government. And at times, we have manifested the best of this Saturn-Chiron opposition. But at its worst, it is a tendency to try and control and wound others, which we have also done time and time again throughout history. We've done it internally through slavery, through trying to control other groups, genocide against Native American groups, and we have a long history of trying to control the regimes in other countries and remove leaders that we don't like. We were supposed to be beyond that kind of action. I think laws were passed making that kind of action rather illegal, so that we would just use soft power instead to try and influence other countries. But in this administration, it looks like we're back to removing leaders south of the border that we don't like. Okay, again, this whole Saturn-Chiron opposition in America's natal chart is being stimulated right now, and not to the benefit of Venezuela. Well, maybe ultimately to their benefit, but certainly not to the benefit of Maduro. And lastly, if we look at transits to Trump's chart, at the time of the invasion or attack on Venezuela, we have transiting Mars at 14 plus degrees Capricorn, making a strong square to Trump's Chiron at 14 plus degrees of Libra in his second house. This is going to activate his tendency to wound others through aggressive actions actions that seek to control others, since Mars is in Capricorn. And ultimately, this all could be done for financial gain for America or for him in some way, since Mars is in the second house, which has to do with finances and resources. So ultimately, this could all be about Venezuelan oil and wanting to get a share of that. Okay, I think that's going to be the last slide. So let me stop sharing. Okay, and I'm back. Now, in those charts, we see in several of the charts that Mars, Chiron, and Saturn are active. And that all has to do with wounding others, trying to control others, and taking aggressive actions. So, it looks pretty clear to me. And as I always say, astrology is really a weather report. I can predict the likelihood of certain things happening. I can't say for certain what events will occur and which ones won't. But I certainly saw over a year ago this likelihood of America getting involved with conflict, either at home or abroad, as we move through 2025 and get into 2026. And sure enough, that has happened. We have seen more aggressive actions within the country, and lately more aggressive actions outside of the country. And that's where we are. So I got the gist of what might happen from astrology through analyzing weather reports, but we don't know the specific events that might occur. But once something happens, we can go back, do what I call an astrological autopsy, and that way, in that manner, we can better understand the astrological associations to the events that occurred. So I'll stop right there, try and keep this brief. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you join me for additional videos from time to time. But for now, I'll just say so long and be well.